There's an age-old ad that seems to indicate that the Kombi is a bit of a box, and although it might appear so, it actually has quite a lot of curves. These curves can be quite a challenge when it comes to panel repairs, so I've spent a lot of time researching restoration methods, and with my research I was very impressed with Ron Covell. Ron has a great website where he offers a range of videos on restoration and metal shaping. And after purchasing some of these, I was really motivated, and I'll be applying some of the techniques in this project, starting with a wooden buck. Ron explains that the buck is a template or framework that's used to capture all the contours of the body and all of its edges. It's then used as a guide when creating new panels to ensure that you have captured the exact bends and shape of your panel. I'll be going through how I made this buck for the engine door. But why did I decide on a buck for the engine door? Well, the bottom of this section is rusted right through in a number of areas. And as well as that, it's also bent. I initially thought it was a flat door with just the number plate pressed. But the edges appear to have a slight bend to them. Checking against the lines of the rear corner, I can see that there are slight curves, meaning that a replacement section of the door can't be flat. I'll need to capture the body curves accurately if I want to do this properly. The buck will allow me to do this, and I felt it was a good challenge for my first trial at this method of restoration. So to build my buck, I started by making a paper template of the edge of the corner panel, which seemed to be the logical place to capture. Using this paper template, I'll transfer the shape to a thin plywood. Using tape to transfer the line helps smooth out any dents or warping the corner panel may have had. And after carefully cutting and sanding the template, I then worked out my marking points for the door against the body. Using this template, I was able to create my first edge or station for the buck. And checking it against the door, I could see that the shape fit really well. I'm going to need at least 5 stations, which I've marked out with tape on the door, and then 2 cross sections for the front and back. To replicate exact copies of these, I'll use a router blade with a bearing edge, set to the height so it runs true against the top section. The result is fantastic. I was able to repeat this for all my stations I needed. To capture the measurement of the base, I'm using a square against the door. For the exact lengths, I'll need to consider the thickness of the metal that's folded over each edge. So I've used 2 small pieces that I'll use to subtract from my measurements. The buck is starting to take shape. I have enough stations and the base now. Next is the front and back cross sections. As there's a slight curve to the thickness, I've used the station to capture this angle. And with some testing, I found the right angle needed on my sander. Then repeat the process again for the other cross section. To work out the positions of my inner stations, I measured the distance from the edge to the point of where the panel folds. I included one more for the center, but I'll need to shape that to accommodate the number plate folds. For this I'm using a contour gauge, which you can get in a variety of sizes. But I'll need to remove the door skin first, as these supports interfere with the contour. Finally, I cut out the windows in the base so I can see how the panel aligns with the buck. A test fit against the van to make sure it's right. And my first buck is completed. In my next video, I'll be removing the door skin to start the repair.